New fight footage allegedly showing Rick Ross and Birdman squaring up has the internet in a frenzy right now. Blogs are scrambling, comment sections are going wild, and everybody's got an opinion on what went down. But here's the thing. This beef didn't start with whatever happened in that video. These two have a history that goes back over a decade, and it's one of hip-hop's most fascinating feuds. What makes it even crazier is that these guys used to be brothers. Real talk, they were tight. So how did we get here? Let's rewind to 2008. Rick Ross and Birdman weren't just cool. They were collaborating on a whole joint mixtape called The H. This wasn't some quick cash grab either. The project took years to finish, finally dropping in May 2013, with tracks like Flashy Cars and Born Stunner. Ross openly talked about looking up to Birdman during that era, straight up calling him an idol who pushed him to go harder. Birdman returned the love, saying Ross was like a brother, and that he'd schooled him on the industry game. These two southern rap bosses genuinely seemed to respect each other. Fast forward to today, and they're allegedly throwing hands. What happened between then and now is a story about loyalty, money, and watching your heroes reveal who they really are. The beef between Ross and Birdman didn't actually start with them. It started with Lil Wayne. Understanding this is crucial because Ross didn't just wake up one day and decide to go at Birdman. His whole perspective shifted when he witnessed what was happening between Birdman and Wayne, two people who supposedly had one of the tightest bonds in hip-hop. Birdman discovered Wayne back in 1993 when the kid was just 9 years old, rapping in New Orleans' Magnolia Projects. He saw something special and signed him to Cash Money Records immediately. Their relationship went way beyond business. Wayne literally called Birdman Daddy, especially after his biological stepfather was killed in 1997. For over 2 decades, they built an empire together. They collaborated constantly, made each other rich, and Birdman publicly proclaimed that Wayne was his son and he'd die for him. From the outside, it looked unbreakable. Then December 2014 hit, and Wayne went to Twitter with a message that shocked everyone. He said he felt like a prisoner at Cash Money because the label was blocking the release of the Carter V. Wayne accused Birdman of holding his album hostage and not paying him what he was owed. This wasn't just artist frustration. This was somebody genuinely trapped. By January 2015, Wayne had filed a $51 million lawsuit against Birdman and Cash Money Records for breach of contract and unpaid advances. The case laid out years of allegedly unpaid royalties and broken promises. The son was suing the father, and the whole industry was watching. Rick Ross was paying attention too. He'd built his own empire with Maybach Music Group, and he respected what Wayne had accomplished. Watching someone he admired get allegedly exploited hit different for Ross. In interviews later, he explained it perfectly. When you admire someone from a distance, you build up this image of who they are. But when you get close enough to see how they actually move behind closed doors, sometimes that image gets completely shattered. Ross saw Birdman in a new light, and he didn't like what he was seeing. Things escalated dramatically in April 2015 when Lil Wayne's tour bus got shot up in Atlanta after a club appearance. Nobody was hurt, but the incident sent shockwaves through hip-hop. The police investigation reportedly connected the shooting to people associated with Birdman, though Baby denied any involvement. The charges eventually got dropped in 2019 due to insufficient evidence, but the damage was done. Just the association with that kind of street violence changed how people viewed the entire situation. Whether Birdman was involved or not, the fact that it even came up made the beef feel dangerous. Throughout 2015 and into 2016, Ross started making his feelings known publicly. On his Black Market album in December 2015, he dropped a track called Color Money with bars that everybody knew were aimed at Birdman. He rapped about having more money than the person you're signed to, a clear shot at what he felt was happening with Wayne's situation at Cash Money. Ross wasn't being subtle. He was putting it on record that he had a problem with how Birdman was moving. Then came April 2016 and Birdman's legendary Breakfast Club interview. If you don't remember it, Baby walked into that studio and immediately started demanding respect, telling Charlamagne Tha God and the hosts to stop playing with his name before walking out after barely 2 minutes. The clip went viral instantly, and "put some respect on my name" became one of the most quoted phrases in hip-hop history. People are still using it today as a meme. Ross couldn't resist getting in on that. He responded by sending Breakfast Club host Charlamagne bottles of his Bel Air Rosé, a petty but calculated jab at Birdman's expense. It was subtle shade, but the message was crystal clear. Ross was positioning himself directly against the Cash Money boss, and he was doing it publicly. The friendship was officially dead. From that point forward, The tension simmered, but never really went away. Both Ross and Birdman would occasionally make comments about each other in interviews or on social media. Sometimes it was direct, sometimes it was subliminal, but the beef stayed alive. They moved in the same circles, same industry events, same award shows, same cities. People always wondered when they'd eventually cross paths in person. That brings us to this new footage that's got everyone talking. The clip allegedly shows Ross and Birdman getting physical, though details are still murky about when and where it happened. Some people are saying it's recent footage, others claim it's old video that just surfaced. The quality isn't great, and you can't hear much of what's being said, which has led to a ton of speculation and debate online. Was this old tension finally boiling over? Did something new happen to trigger this? Are these two ever going to squash this beef, or is it just going to keep escalating? What makes this particularly interesting is how it reflects a larger pattern in hip-hop. Ross's beef with Birdman stems from his loyalty to Lil Wayne and his disgust at how Wayne was allegedly being treated. In Ross's mind, this wasn't just business. It was about principles. When you see someone you respect getting taken advantage of by someone you once looked up to, it forces you to choose sides. Ross chose Wayne's side even though it meant burning a bridge with Birdman, someone who had mentored him. The financial stakes in this beef are massive too. We're not just talking about hurt feelings and diss tracks. Wayne's lawsuit was for $51 million. Birdman's entire legacy and business empire were on the line. Ross, meanwhile, was building Maybach Music Group into a powerhouse label of its own, signing artists like Meek Mill and Whale. These are all people with real money, real power, and real pride. When egos and bank accounts get that big, conflicts don't just fade away quietly. There's also the generational aspect to consider. Birdman came up in the 90s, building Cash Money from the ground up in New Orleans when Southern rap wasn't getting the respect it deserved nationally. He helped put the South on the map. Ross came up in the 2000s, part of a new wave of Southern rappers who built on what Birdman's generation established. In a perfect world, that should create respect and unity. Instead, Ross felt like Birdman was betraying the very artist who made him successful. That's what made him so angry. It wasn't just about Wayne, it was about what Birdman represented. The irony is that both Ross and Birdman built their careers on similar foundations. They both created successful record labels. They both positioned themselves as bosses and moguls, not just rappers. They both came from the South and had to fight for recognition in an industry that initially dismissed their region. They should have been allies. Instead, they became enemies, all because of how Birdman allegedly handled his business with Wayne. Looking at where things stand now, it's hard to see how this gets resolved. Wayne and Birdman eventually settled their lawsuit in 2018, and the Carter Five finally dropped later that year. But the relationship between Wayne and Birdman never really recovered. They're cordial now, maybe, but that father-son bond they once had is gone. As for Ross and Birdman, there's been no settlement, no public reconciliation, no moment where they sat down and squashed it. Just lingering animosity that apparently still exists, strong enough that new footage of them allegedly fighting can break the internet in 2025. The sad part is that this whole situation could have been avoided. If Birdman had just released the Carter Five when Wayne wanted it out, if he'd paid Wayne what he was allegedly owed, none of this happens. Ross never gets involved. That friendship stays intact. And we're not here in 2025 watching grainy footage of two rap legends supposedly trying to fight each other. But that's hip-hop. Pride, money, and respect create conflicts that can last for decades. Whatever actually happened in this new footage, whether it's recent or old, whether punches were really thrown, or it's just another piece of street theater that got caught on camera, one thing is certain. The beef between Rick Ross and Birdman is real. It runs deep, and it's rooted in principles that matter to both of them. This isn't manufactured drama for album sales. This is what happens when loyalty, money, and betrayal collide in an industry where image and reputation mean everything. The timing of this footage surfacing is interesting too. Both Ross and Birdman are in different places in their careers now compared to when this beef started. Ross just turned 49 and is still actively making music, running Maybach Music, and expanding his business ventures beyond rap. He owns multiple Wingstop franchises and has built a legitimate business empire outside of music. Birdman is 56 now, and while Cash Money isn't the powerhouse it was in the 2000s, he's still a wealthy man with his hands in various ventures. These aren't young, hungry rappers trying to prove themselves anymore. They're established moguls with legacies to protect. That's what makes this footage so wild to people. When you're in your late 40s and 50s, allegedly getting into physical altercations over beef that started a decade ago. It raises questions about whether this will ever actually end. Some fans think it's embarrassing that they can't move past it. Others respect that Ross stuck to his principles and never backed down, even when Birdman was still one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop. There's no easy answer to whether holding on to this beef for so long is loyalty or stubbornness. The cultural impact of this feud extends beyond just these two individuals as well. It set a precedent for how rappers navigate industry politics and choose sides in conflicts that don't directly involve them. Ross didn't have to get involved in Wayne's battle with Birdman, but he chose to because he felt it was the right thing to do. That decision cost him a friendship and created years of tension, but it also earned him respect from Wayne and other artists who saw someone willing to stand up against powerful industry figures. In an industry where people often stay silent about exploitation and mistreatment because they don't want to burn bridges, Ross's willingness to speak up meant something. The Wayne and Birdman situation also changed how younger artists view label deals and business relationships in hip-hop. When one of the biggest rappers of all time is publicly fighting his label for years, it makes other artists pay attention. It showed that no matter how close you are to someone, no matter how much of a family they claim you are, business is business and contracts matter. The fact that Ross sided with the artist over the label executive resonated with a lot of people in the industry who felt powerless in similar situations. So what do you think about this whole situation? Was Rick Ross right to take Wayne's side against Birdman, or should he have stayed out of it? And will these two ever actually squash this beef, or are we going to be watching new footage of them going at it for years to come? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe because hip-hop beef never really ends. It just takes breaks. Peace.